Hey, hey, welcome to Brains and Baubles Live. I'm your host, Davina Dandridge, and I am so glad that you joined me today because today we are still focusing on fathers, dads, daddies, papas, whatever you call him, the man in your life that inputs such information and is imprinted on you from the very beginning. This show is all about emotional intelligence, how to apply emotional intelligence, the benefits of emotional intelligence. And what I do is I bring on guests who share and have knowledge. Listen, there's nothing better than getting information from the source, someone who's already done the work, someone who's already done the research and has put it together in a way that they want to share from you to you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring on my guest really soon, but I do want to tell you about something that I'm doing. So, last session, I spoke with my sister, and the title of the show was Things Our Daddy Taught Us. So, our dad left a great imprint on our lives, even things that we're doing now, and he's been gone, unfortunately, for 20 years. But here's what I want to do. I want to share the things that my daddy taught me with you, with women who didn't have a male influence in their life. And men can benefit from it as well, but we always think about the detriment that it has to women and how they see themselves and the type of people that they get involved with when they don't have a good father figure in their lives. So I am willing to share my experience with other women. And, I know you say, well, look, I'm a grown woman now. What can that do for me? Listen, the insight is there. I was imprinted with the insight from a man who had lived life, the man who had had a perspective other than the one that I could have gotten from my mom or I could get from girlfriends. So this information is valuable. And in a few short weeks, I'll be announcing a way that I can impart more of this information with other women. All right, so I hope you're open to it. I'm sure you will get something out of some of these little stories and anecdotes that I share about my dad. All right, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest today. Now, listen, let me tell you, this man is very smart. And being smart is one thing, but this man is also wise. And that's a big thing for me to say because he's just a little bit younger than me. And I know him personally because he's my nephew, but he is wise and he has wisdom on the father tip. Let me tell you, he's a father and a grandfather. And he also is willing to share and teach fathers how they can be a part of their children's lives, guys and girls. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to André Dandridge. All right, André. We're waiting. Hey,
Hey, hey, hey.
how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm not reading anything. I can take my reading glasses off.
Okay, all right, well, good. No, we're just gonna chop it up, in other words, right?
Do it. Let's do it.
Right. Listen, Andre, I said in the introduction that I think you're wise. I really do mean that. I'm not trying to blow your head up, but if I never said it before, I'm saying it now, okay?
That's okay. I'll
Okay.
take it. I'll take the compliment. Thank you so very much.
Okay, good, good, good. And this show, since Father's Day is fast approaching, I wanted to bring you on because I wanted to talk about a dad's perspective. You are a dad. You are a dad, and you're married to your wonderful wife, Nicole, and you have a beautiful daughter, and you have another beautiful daughter, your oldest daughter, Brianna, that
Mhm.
wasn't with Nicole. And so you had different relationships with their moms, which influenced how they were raised and some of the ways that you were able to interact with them. And I think that it's important to discuss the father's point of view from what you experienced going through maybe co-parenting and then having the opportunity to raise a child within a marriage, and then some of the ways that you have shared how to deal with some of the pitfalls of some relationships when it has to do with that. You tell me where
Mhm.
you want to start. I know that was a loaded. start. But tell me where
No,
you'd like to start
I
sharing.
mean, I mean, let's start at the beginning when when I first became a father. I think that's
Okay.
the best place to start. I was a college student. I didn't expect to start a family when I started a family, right?
Mhm.
And at the time, this was my girlfriend at the time. I mean, and at that point in your life, you think that that's what it is, but relationship didn't work out between her and I. And by the time my daughter she wasn't even, when was it, October? So she wasn't quite two yet. She was still 1 year old when I met my wife.
Okay.
Um, so my daughter only remembers me being with my wife, right?
Okay.
So, um, and I was a young parent. I became a father when I was 22.
That is
Um,
young. Well, maybe not so young by today's standards in some cases,
right, but
but yeah.
I wasn't in any. I had at that point in my life, I hadn't really thought about being a father. Right, what does it
Mm-hmm.
take to be a dad? Like I said, I was a college student. I had a high school diploma. I didn't have any money. I worked part time on work study. Right, so I didn't have
Yeah.
things set up for to be a parent.
Right.
And I was really involved in hip hop. I was really rapping all the time, and that was my focus outside of school was busting rhymes and smashing MCs. Like,
All
so I
right.
wasn't so I wasn't thinking about what it would take to be a dad. And then as she was developing in her mother's stomach, I started to focus on that. Like, okay, what will it take?
Yeah,
And
the
literally,
reality.
I went on a trip to New York with one of my friends, and we blew a lot of money, right? And we did the things that I was doing before I knew I was going to be a dad, which really didn't make a difference. But with the baby coming, I said I can't do it like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So so I went to seek guidance outside of myself. I found that guidance, and it really helped me and put me on a path to be what I wanted to be. Now my
Okay.
father was in my life, but at that time, being 22 years old, and he really wasn't available to me at that moment in my life. He had been a bit
Okay.
more available other times in my life, but at that moment in my life, he really wasn't available, and I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And my world changed when she was born. I was in my last semester of my bachelor's program. She was born in February 1995, and my world changed when I saw her.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? I want to jump back to the point where you saw yourself operating as you did when you were footloose and fancy free. And then
Mm-hmm.
you had the revelation that, hey, I am about to be responsible for a life here. Even after,
Mm-hmm.
you're in the act. And sometimes that doesn't connect with young fathers right away. But since this show is based on emotional intelligence, I do want to point out that you had self awareness to know that you
Mm-hmm.
did need help. You didn't go
Mm-hmm.
to your friends to get help. You actually
Mm-hmm.
sought help from another source. And
Mm-hmm.
there are plenty of resources out. Sometimes the resources are sought out, and sometimes people don't know about them. And so, what did you do to kind of
Mm-hmm.
get yourself aligned, to take on the responsibility and really come into manhood, so to speak? Not saying that you weren't a man, but when you're taking care of another life, that sure steps it up to another level.
Mm-hmm. I mean, let me talk about my family first. So I have a lot of uncles, right? So I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of uncles. And they were always there for me. They were there to give me a lot of advice throughout my life. My father was in my life growing up. So I had a family base, but still, even with all of that, I still wasn't what I wanted to be for this child, because I'm like, okay, if I do this again, what I just did, if I blow $2,500 in 3 days, which is not a lot to some of you ballers, right? But to me, for a college student, that was a ton of money for me to
that's
blow in three
that's a
days,
lot.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
said, I can't do it like this anymore. So I went to the mosque. This is
Okay.
the time when Malcolm X movie was out and
Okay.
everything out. And I told somebody at my school, I said, this is what I just did. I got the baby coming. what do you suggest? He said, I think you should go to the mosque. I said, huh?
Okay.
I'm like, all right, well, I'll go. I just saw the movie. I just saw Malcolm's movie. I'll go. I ain't scared, you know.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
went, and it really answered what I needed in my life, right?
Hmm.
It gave me the discipline and the structure I needed in my life to get it together enough so that not become perfect overnight, because that's not what
Right.
happened to me. But it put
Hmm.
me on a path so that so that I wouldn't regret what I did later on in my daughter's life. Because I
Yeah.
stumbled, I did all kinds of stuff. I mean, you know, I'm a regular dude from the west side of Detroit, right?
Right.
And I was doing regular dude from the west side of Detroit stuff,
Hmm.
right? My friends were everybody, all of my friends and family wasn't college students, right?
Right.
They were regular dudes from the west side, east
Regular
side of
dudes.
Detroit,
Yeah.
right? So I was running with those guys, and some of the things that, and even my friends in college, you know, we did things that would that possibly could have took me away from my daughter, and none of it was that deep to me, right?
Yeah.
I don't care about none of this enough to take me away from her. So let me get my shit together. Excuse my language. Let me get my life together,
We
right?
grown folks.
Right. Let me get it. And I did that purposefully, and you know, it put me on a path to now, you know, she's 28 years old, she's married, she has two children, and she is I think that we have a good relationship. Like me investing in myself for her, because she was just the catalyst, but it helped me to get my things in order. And today we have a good, pretty freaking great relationship,
That's
right? Because I
awesome.
was honest with her. Not
Yeah,
that I was
that's
perfect. I didn't become a
we
holy
know you're
roller.
not going to be perfect because like they've said, there's no handbook to parenting, and then co-parenting adds another layer to it. So I think a lot of the trauma that comes in children's lives when their father is not in the home, a lot of it comes from the drama of relationship with trying to co-parent in a relationship that once was a love relationship but now has to change because that portion of the relationship isn't working, but now you have a life that you have to take care of. And oftentimes children are, I don't want to say mishandled, but they aren't the focus when that struggle comes in. While it's about the children, a lot of the time, the struggle is more so about finding a new dynamic to communicate and relate to one another. And it takes years sometimes before co-parents can really be civil to one another. But in the meantime, there's a financial part on both people, and then like you said, you were fortunate enough to start another relationship early on in your daughter's life, so that's what she's known. But sometimes that back and forth adds drama to whether or not, I think, if we think about emotional intelligence, one thing, a piece of advice that I could always give someone is, when you know that a relationship is at the end, you have to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Slashing tires or doing things that are devious might try to help the hurt, but still, you have to get beyond that. So I know a lot of times fathers are not in their children's life because of that struggle, wanting to not have to deal with, the drama that comes with that separation. Can you speak to that? Like,
Well,
did you
you know,
experience that? And if so, how
I
did you
mean, for
deal
me,
with it?
I like I said, I was young. So being as a younger person, I wasn't 16, but I was. I mean, you're 22, man. I didn't know about this
That's
everything
very
about the
young.
world. So
Hmm.
so I did. I stumbled along the way, right? We didn't get along, me and her mom, but I didn't not let that block me doing what I was supposed to do, right?
Good.
So regardless of me and her not getting along, I still got to go to parent teachers conference. I still got to scrape up what little money I got to make sure if she needs school clothes, if she needs whatever, right? I
Hmm.
still had to pay child support, and I didn't understand that because when she was born initially, we was living together. So how I
Right.
got to pay, I didn't understand it. Nobody explained it to me.
Hmm.
Matter of fact,
Can
it
you
was very
shed light on
rude
the
to me.
benefit of child support, the whole child support thing? Because And I'm sorry, I cut right into that, but I didn't want to forget this. A lot of times the apprehension for child support is because there might be the idea that there's going to be a misappropriation of funds. Like you said, you were living in the household, and when you moved out, that whole child support thing, after you were still being involved in your daughter's life and being responsible. Can you kind of speak to what child support really does? Because I know that you have your expertise
Hmm.
in that and
Hmm.
plenty of years of
Yeah, I mean,
knowledge and research.
and also, okay, I gotta. Okay, so it's supposed to take care of the basic needs of the child, right?
Okay.
And in the state of Michigan, it's supposed to be based on what's in the best interest of the child. So they have a equation, a calculation that they make based on how much money you make is how much you have to pay. And
Okay.
then when it goes to the mom, then they get the money. You can't control. Once I realized this, first of all, she wasn't a crackhead by
Okay.
God's mercy, right? She wasn't
Yeah.
an irresponsible woman, and she did her best to take care of my daughter. So I
Okay.
give her props for that. She didn't
Good.
do I didn't have to worry about that other stuff that some people worry about, and I didn't care enough, right?
Hmm.
I just got to do what I got to do. How much I got to pay? Okay, I paid it, right?
Hmm.
That's it. I
Okay.
slid it, and once I realized that the friend of the court didn't really want to hear anything I had to say. They didn't
Hmm.
want to hear any. The judge didn't want to hear. Nobody really wanted to hear what I had. All they wanted to do is after they made that calculation and put that court order in, is make sure I did what I was supposed to do under the order. So I just slid them the bread, whatever, slid
Yeah.
them the bread, and then initially they moved out. I stayed in the house that
Okay.
we were in together. I ain't move out. This was my spot. They
Okay.
moved out, right? And then eventually I moved to a different state. So now I'm in a
Oh.
different state. So now so we already have the order, visitation order, whatever. So I had to go and get her or have my sister bring her to me and spend time
Mm-mm.
with her that way. I used to, this is before you got to think about technology in the mid 90s. Okay. Got to
Okay.
23
So
out
we
your
gotta
head.
look, we gotta get in the time
Go back a
machine
little bit. I
and
would
reel
go
it on
buy her
back.
books. I would buy a book. I would go to the store, buy a book, buy a tape, and I would read the book on the tape. I would mail
Oh.
her the tape and the book. So daddy reading you a story, right? That's what
Yeah.
I did for my daughter. And I
Wow.
did that several times so she can have listen to me read her book, and her mom would play the tapes for her and
That's
have her
awesome.
book, right? Um, and again, I didn't have a whole lot of money, so it wasn't like I was paying. I'm not Diddy. I'm not paying $50,000 in child support based on my broke how much money I was barely making, right?
Yeah.
So as my income went up, the child support money went up, but
Hmm.
initially it wasn't a lot of money, and that's not my fault. I didn't come up with the calculation.
Right.
That's what the state came up with. And then on top of that, I would, I did my best to supplement field trips and gym shoes and winter coats and whatever games or whatever they needed, whatever she needed. And then, um, and by the time she was 4 years old, I was married to my wife,
Okay.
and we had our daughter. So now I
Okay.
got two daughters,
Now you have
right?
two. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And they were raised the way I was raised. They sisters, ain't no half, ain't no step, ain't
Right.
none of that stuff, right?
Right.
That's your sister. Um, so now I had to make it so that they could be around each other, right? And by this time,
Absolutely.
I moved to another state. Now I'm living in South Florida, right? She back in Michigan. So I would get her for a part of the summer. So we would find summer camps and everything. So that when she came down and she was with us and they were together, we made did our best to make a family environment, right? She went to
Yes.
the camps. I took her to the camps. We went to Disney. We had a lot of we had some good old times,
And
right?
built memories. You built
Yeah, for
memories
sure.
as a family. And I mean, it is an effort. And as parents, I've been a single mom. And then now I'm in a relationship and have been in a relationship with one of your uncles, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and he had children, I had a daughter, but we do everything that we can as a family, and they're adults now, so it's difficult, but you have to make an effort as parents to do what's best for the child, because
Mm-hmm.
you making sure that you recorded your voice, those things are memories. Even though you couldn't be there physically, as some dads who, like my dad, lived in the house, we had those memories from interactions day to day. You still built memories. And I think that's so important for people to get out of their own pride and think about the children first. And it matters. It matters. It matters. So if you had one piece of advice to give to a young man who, or, both of them, the man and the woman, might be surprised that they're having a child right now, what is the one piece of advice, wisdom that this young man might not get from his friends or someone else who doesn't have the knowledge or hasn't been through what you've been through, that would help him survive and I say survive
Yeah,
because
one piece of
it
advice.
is
Okay,
war sometimes.
okay, let me think of one piece of advice. Do your best to be honest to yourself for the benefit of your child, and be honest to your child about what's going on in your life, comma, or semicolon, right?
Yeah.
Do not ignore child support. Don't
Mm,
ignore it. It will not go away. You may get
yeah.
away for 2 years, 3 years, five, maybe 10, but eventually you're going to have to deal with that,
Like
right?
taxes and
So it's
student
better to
loans.
start dealing with it up front, right? Initially, deal with it's a reality of life. If you're not with this woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're not with the woman, it's a reality of life, and get used to it. And eventually, what happens is, and what happened in my case is, if you're doing your best, right? You don't have to be perfect. Doing your best, eventually the emotional charge that was there initially, it falls off to the wayside.
Okay.
And if she knows that you are doing your best and that you love this child and you're doing, eventually you all become professional parents, right?
Good. I like that. Professional parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a professional parent, that means there is thought and then there's action to the plan that you have for co-parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we talked about you in as a dad outside of the home. What was different as a dad inside the home? I know it's that you have the day-to-day interaction, but what is it that you plan, or did you have a conscious thought of, something that you could do because I mean, I know it all happened kind of in close proximity, but
It was all, I mean, for me, I think I had the benefit of having, because she's four. My younger daughter is 4 years younger than my older daughter, so I had the
okay.
benefit of parenting with my older child. So I don't. The only, I mean, really, the only thing that was different was that I was around her more physically,
Mm-hmm.
right? But as far as what I did, um, I tried to do. I didn't do anything more. I don't think for my daughter that was in my house that was in the house than the other one,
Okay.
and I purposefully tried to give them both as much as I could. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I'm around more. So if you talk to them, they may have something different to say. Well, you don't know because you weren't around daddy all the time. He's crazy, right, man? Maybe a little bit, but yeah, you can't sneak little boys around and all of that stuff. No, because I was right there, right?
And
But
yeah,
you
that's
know,
a lesson.
but I did my best to invest in both of them. Because it's really as a if you think about it like this, like cars and homes and jewelry and all that stuff is cool, but your best investment as a parent is in your children, right?
Yeah.
So if when you're raising them,
Mhm.
if you spend that time when you're raising them, then when they become an adult, because there's a time in their life where they're gonna see you for who you are,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They will mature enough to say, okay, well, you're not really Superman. You can't really bend steel with your hands. You're just a regular person. But as long as you were honest with them, then when they see you for who you are, they
They'll
won't be
love
mad.
you. They still love you.
Exactly.
They still love.
Exactly.
But you talked about, I talked about things my daddy taught me.
Hmm.
And, the lessons that fathers impart on daughters inside the house, outside the house, just by benefit of relationship, are so very valuable. Self
Hmm.
worth being one of them.
Hmm.
Your daughters are successful, they work hard, they have the work ethic that you and your wife, and I'm assuming, I don't know your oldest daughter's mother, but I'm assuming as a community that you guys
Hmm.
have imparted in them. What is one of the core values that you wanted to make sure that your daughters left home with? Like, I know I
Cool.
wanted my daughter to make sure that she knew she knows she can do anything.
Hmm.
So,
I mean that you deserve respect in your life, right? So you deserve to be respected.
mhm,
So I took away, so all of this fancy stuff, like guys taking them out to candlelight dinners and all that, I did that with them.
yeah,
So you're not gonna be blown away because he bought you a fish that cost $30, right? Or took you to a dinner and the lights was low when they had jazz on it. No,
and a
daddy did
real
all this stuff with
tablecloth.
them. Yeah, so I did all that stuff with them. So I wanted them to be exposed to this world. And I wanted them, you know, to know that they have force and power in their
Mm,
life. They have the
mhm,
same ability that I have, that the great people that they've seen in history have,
yes.
but they have to be true to themselves. They have to have a connection to Allah, to God,
Mhm,
and go out here and conquer this world. Because I put it, I made sure that when I raised them, I spent the time in it cultivating them, so that,
mhm.
look, it's going to be challenges. Overcome these challenges, then you're going to have good time, then it's going to be a tough time, then it's going to be a good time, then it's going to be a tough time.
Yeah,
But that's what life is,
that's
right?
life.
So I
Hmm.
taught them to deal with life. I think that's the best thing I did. I taught them to deal with life and not to be scared of it and run from life, because life ain't always fun. So it's fun a lot of times, but it damn sure ain't a rap video.
It isn't. And one thing that my dad taught me, we talked about many things, was that life is not a fantasy. And so
Mm.
once you come to the
Hmm.
realization that the things that we see on TV, what we hear in music, the way people show themselves on social media is not reality. And then some of these things, while they're great, to go to these nice dinners and have the cloth and have somebody scraping off the crumbs off the table, all of
Hmm.
that stuff is wonderful, but it could be fleeting. And what's really important is the core of the person. So I think, just like you were expressing, you were telling your girls that their power is there, they have power, is the self-worth piece. And
Hmm.
oftentimes people go for the fantasy of the tablecloth, the nice car. The thing that I used to always say is that while I could date a guy that could take me to these restaurants and has a nice car, it's not mine. I have to get mine. I have to figure
Hmm.
out what it is that I want and go for it. And I think that, having a dad there does help that, if the dad is that type of dad. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, all women don't get that type of dad. And maybe they don't have that type of dad for their whole time growing up.
Hmm.
But I do think that there is a way to learn self-worth and have value and still realize that life is not a fantasy. So,
One more thing I want to say before we move on.
yeah,
I did my best to make them feel safe. Part of my job as a
yes,
father was a protector. So I
yes,
made them feel safe when they were with me, or not even with me, because I moved back. So I moved from Florida back to Michigan when my oldest daughter was about 9. So now my daughters were around each other.
okay,
But if daddy's around, and even if I'm not around, you safe. I'm your
yes,
protector, right?
yes,
And especially for my daughter that wasn't in my house, we had secret codes. Hey, if you're around people and something is happening that you don't like, we had secret words that we would say to each other, so she
Yes.
could communicate with me and be safe. And I come and bring the I
Uh,
would come and bring the pain if
I
necessary,
knew
right?
that's
I
what you
didn't
were
have
going
to,
for. But yeah,
right?
that's daddy. That's
Yeah,
daddy. I
yeah.
remember, growing up in Highland Park, while,
Mm-hmm.
we lived in a nice house, and
Mm-hmm.
we lived on the corner house. My dad would tell me, if anything happens to you, you call me before you call the police.
Mm-hmm.
And one time I came home I was going to school at Wayne State, and I came home, and things just didn't look right. And there was a pipe on the couch, and I said, "Uh-oh." And my little dog Sparkle was just shaking, shaking, shaking. And I realized that someone had been in the house. I did call him. I had to go to the payphone. This was back in the
Mm-hmm.
day. Had to
Right,
go to
right,
the
right,
payphone because they stole my
right.
phone. I had one of those little neon light up phones. They stole the phone. So I had to go to the payphone. My dad got there from 6 Mile in Greenfield to Highland
Mm-hmm.
Park before the Highland Park police got to me.
Mm.
And it's something to know that you have the security of a dad. But there are
Mm-hmm.
also resources, Andre, that are available to people. I'm a resource, and I'm becoming even more of a resource for women who really want to know what they don't know as far as a relationship with the dad. What other
Mm-hmm.
resources do you know, or that you can share with people who might want to either get help, with finding a source to give them
Mm-hmm.
that straight and narrow focus that they need when they first become a parent, or just find out they're
Mm-hmm.
becoming a parent, and if they're in the child support loop, so to speak, or just need some support.
So me and your husband, right? When
Yeah.
I was we started an organization for young fathers called newyoungfathers.com in 2008, and it was available until 2022. We helped
Okay.
young fathers through the what it is from conception all the way up through whatever you need to do with getting a job and dealing with the mother of your child and
Hmm.
making sure that you have everything that you need to move forward in your life as well as being a father. There are many organizations out there, and what I would say is it depends on where you are, right? They
Okay.
vary from state to state, so this is going to be on the internet. So just do a Google search on support groups for young fathers or support groups for fathers, because
Okay.
you have legal support where you have like if somebody's getting a divorce or they're dealing with child support. Depending on your area, you can find this if you simply use the internet for something besides social media, right?
Of course.
And just Google and say support in Chicago for young fathers, or child support help for fathers. You'll get there are a lot of organizations out there, so I
Okay.
don't really have one in particular that I want to highlight. I know in Michigan you have the network of fathers
Okay.
with Flying Fish, and where I'm still working on stuff with teen and young fathers, and eventually, probably within the next year, I'm going to have a course out based on all the
Oh,
things that we did for teen fathers, and it'll be less than a fifth of their favorite alcohol per
okay.
month, right?
Yeah,
To
they can budget for
uh,
that.
yeah, right. That's in their budget.
Uh-huh.
Other things that they spend money on, right?
Hmm.
Um, to give them the support, everything I just told you, child support help,
That's
support
awesome.
with dealing with the mother of your children, support with dealing with yourself. I would say another key thing is, like I said, I went to the mosque. I ran to the mosque. Well,
Hmm.
some people don't like organized religion. I got it. I understand that,
Okay.
right? So work on yourself. You have to
Yes.
do some type of spiritual development, meditation, yoga, prayer. It's
Yes.
all the same wisdom. It comes, it's delivered in different packages. So go to the church, go to the mosque, go to the synagogue, go to the yoga spot, go to the whatever,
Hmm.
right? So that
Hmm.
you have to have something within your to support yourself
Find that
as a
grounding.
dad,
Hmm.
and because you can't, you won't find it at the bottom of the bottle or the bottom of a sack.
Yeah.
It's not there.
And your friends don't have the wisdom. Like you can't
Exactly.
always follow what someone else has done regarding child support because you have to think, you have to think for yourself and for your child.
Hmm.
It's not about somebody else's experience. Well, Andre, listen, you did set a good template for fathers, and now you're a grandfather, so you get to share that love and benefit in a
Yeah.
new way. And I'm sure that your grandchildren are benefiting very well from that. I just want to
Mhm.
thank you so much on this Father's Day approaching that people who view this can have a different perspective. I know sometimes Father's Day isn't as big as Mother's Day. I get
No,
that.
it's not. No, no, it's not.
We can spend a little more on our dads because
Hmm.
their input is definitely important to how we think, how we feel, how we deal with emotions, and how we develop in relationships. So, Andre, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there
My
anything you
honor.
want to share what you're doing right now that if people just like your
Man, I
wisdom,
have
or
other
we should
stuff
just
going
come
on. I
back
got a lot
later?
of, yeah, I have a lot of stuff going on, but I just want to say that, for fathers, just make sure that you are honest, right?
Good.
Honesty is a big deal because the children will see you for who you are. I'm an author. I am a speaker. I'm in community economic development. I am a patent professional. I've done a lot since I had a high school diploma and became a father.
Yeah.
But what I would say is I am a resource. I am your brother first, and I have a new book coming out soon on
Oh,
entrepreneurship.
okay.
And so I will share that with you when we get to that point. But yeah, I have a lot of things going on, and now that my children are adults, I have a lot more time to spend with my lovely wife. And after
Okay.
this, I'm going to gaze into her eyes and whisper sweet nothings in her ear,
Sounds
and
good.
just enjoy my evening because I
Well,
did my
listen.
father.
You did your father, and that's right. You have good results from it. All right.
That's right.
Thank you,
Hmm.
Andre. Thank you. Tell Nicole I said thank you too.
I certainly will.
All right. See you next
All right.
time. Bye
All
bye.
right. Peace.
So, if you want more information from me about what I talk about, which is emotional intelligence, be sure to join me every week, Tuesday, 6 o'clock. I will be talking next Tuesday, just me. I'll have something to share with you that's really going to help you amp up your emotional fortitude. I mean, we all have to work on it with me. I have the wisdom and knowledge that I really want to share with you. I really want to make a difference in helping people manage their emotions so they can manage their thoughts so they can curate the environment that they want. All right. So until next